Throughout history, many figures have sparked intense debates and conspiracy theories, but few have provoked as much intrigue as Adolf Hitler. A theory that has gained traction over time is the idea that Hitler was not the independent political mastermind he is often portrayed as, but rather a pawn, an agent serving the interests of powerful elites, notably the Rothschild family and, to a lesser extent, certain U.S. financial circles. This theory postulates that until 1936, Hitler was playing a role aligned with the Rothschilds and American industrialists, advancing their economic and political interests. At first glance, this theory seems implausible. Why would a Jewish banking family, known for its vast influence over European and global finance, support a man whose regime would be responsible for the Holocaust? And how would American interests align with the rise of fascism in Europe, which would ultimately lead to the deaths of millions? To unravel these questions, we must dig deep into the political and economic landscape of Europe in the early 20th century, examine the Rothschilds' role in global affairs, and explore how the U.S. became indirectly connected to Hitler's rise. The Rothschild family, a powerhouse in global finance. The Rothschild family had, by the late 19th century, amassed unprecedented wealth and power. Having established banking houses across Europe, the family was at the forefront of financing governments, industries, and national projects. They were seen as the invisible hand behind major political shifts, wielding influence over both European monarchies and emerging republics. While the Rothschilds remained highly secretive about their operations, their financial power was undeniable. The theory suggests that the Rothschilds, like other banking dynasties, were invested in the idea of stability and the protection of their financial interests in Europe. By the early 1920s, with Europe still reeling from the devastation of World War I, many believed that Germany, left financially crippled by the Treaty of Versailles, posed a significant risk to the economic health of the continent. Unchecked, the rise of communism, anarchy, or even a new form of militarism in Germany could destabilize Europe once more. Germany after World War I, fertile ground for manipulation. Following World War I, Germany was in a state of complete ruin. The Treaty of Versailles had left the country with crippling war reparations, political instability, and a population suffering from extreme poverty. Unemployment soared, and hyperinflation reduced the value of the German mark to almost nothing. Amidst this chaos, political parties of every ideology vied for control, and the Nazi Party, led by Adolf Hitler, began to attract attention. The theory posits that the Rothschild family saw Hitler and his nationalist movement as a potential stabilizing force in Germany. While the Nazis were vehemently anti-communist and anti-Semitic, Hitler's ability to command the masses and instill a sense of national pride presented a counterweight to the growing communist influence in the country. It is theorized that the Rothschilds, despite being Jewish themselves, preferred Hitler's rise to power over the possibility of a communist Germany, which might have dismantled their financial empire in the region. The role of U.S. industrialists and financial circles. In parallel with this Rothschild involvement, the theory also points to U.S. industrialists and financiers who saw Hitler's rise as beneficial to their own economic interests. American businesses such as Ford, IBM, and General Motors had investments in Germany during the interwar period. While their motivations were largely profit-driven, some historians argue that these corporations had a vested interest in ensuring that Germany, a vital market and industrial hub, remained intact. Additionally, it is believed that certain American financiers, particularly those with ties to Wall Street, saw in Hitler a useful tool to prevent the spread of communism in Europe. Germany, with its advanced industry and scientific expertise, was a valuable ally to keep out of the Soviet sphere of influence. U.S. companies provided essential materials to the Nazi regime, sometimes indirectly, through subsidiaries, which helped Germany rebuild its military strength before World War II. Hitler's relationship with the Rothschilds. The notion that Hitler was directly involved with the Rothschilds is often met with skepticism. After all, Hitler was staunchly anti-Semitic, and his regime would later orchestrate the murder of millions of Jews. However, proponents of this theory argue that politics often makes for strange bedfellows. They suggest that the Rothschilds were willing to overlook Hitler's ideology in favor of securing their financial interests. This could explain why Hitler, despite his rhetoric, did not initially target the Rothschilds' assets or influence within Germany. Until 1936, the theory claims, Hitler remained an agent of these elite interests. He consolidated power, rebuilt Germany's economy, and began to restore national pride, all all while keeping the communist threat at bay. His early financial backing, some argue, came from the Rothschilds and other powerful figures who viewed Hitler as a means to an end. 1936, a turning point. By 1936, however, the situation had changed. Hitler had established himself as the Führer, with total control over Germany. His ambitions had grown beyond restoring Germany to its pre-World War I glory. Now, he sought to expand the Reich across Europe. It was at this point, the theory asserts, that Hitler began to diverge from the interests of those who had initially supported him. The Rothschild family, according to the theory, realized that Hitler was no longer controllable. His radical policies and aggressive expansion threatened the financial stability of Europe and, by extension, their own fortunes. Furthermore, Hitler's anti-Semitic policies were becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. This is when, according to some theorists, the Rothschilds began to distance themselves from Hitler and may have even worked against him behind the scenes. Similarly, American industrialists who had previously profited from their dealings with Nazi Germany also began to reconsider their support. As Hitler's plans for European domination became clear, and as his military campaigns escalated, the U.S. started to shift its stance, especially as it became apparent that a conflict with Nazi Germany was inevitable. The outbreak of World War II, end of the alliance. When World War II erupted in 1939, the delicate balance that had existed in the 1930s was shattered. Hitler's alliance with powerful financial backers, both in Europe and the U.S., came to an abrupt end. The war would push the U.S. to ally with the Soviet Union, and the Rothschilds, like many other Jewish families, would be targeted by the Nazi regime. By this point, Hitler was acting independently, driven by his own radical vision for the world. The financial elites, but few have provoked as much intrigue as Adolf Hitler. A theory that has gained traction over time is the idea that Hitler was not the independent political mastermind he is often portrayed as, but rather a pawn who had once seen him as a useful tool could no longer influence or control him. Hitler's ambitions had grown beyond any possible benefit to those who had helped him rise, and his regime was now an uncontrollable force. Conclusion: the thin line between fact and fiction. The theory that Hitler was an agent of the Rothschilds and American interests until 1936 remains a point of contention among historians and conspiracy theorists alike. While there is no definitive proof to support this claim, the intricate web of financial, political, and ideological alliances that shaped Europe in the 1930s certainly lends itself to speculation. One thing is clear, however: the rise of Adolf Hitler was not a simple story of one man's quest for power. It was shaped by the interests and actions of a wide range of players, from industrialists and financiers to political elites and foreign powers. Whether or not Hitler was directly supported by the Rothschilds and U.S. interests, his rise to power is a testament to the complex and often hidden forces